Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. Okay, well, thank you, Anthony, for joining me today for Uncommon Sense. Good to have you with me in the studio.
Thank you. Great to be here. Looking forward to this conversation today.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about where quality is built into Agile. And would I be right in saying that in your experience, there is some consternation about how much quality is built into Agile, and that Agile actually is so determined around speeding up the opportunity for change that quality can be the poor relation?
I think it's a good question. When you consider how maybe traditionally, more historically, projects oriented themselves to ensure that whatever they delivered was of high quality, what they would do is they'd write everything down in very precise terms, and they'd try and take away as much of the ambiguity as possible by being very, very specific and having, a lot of rigor around that planning and governance process. And there is at least a perception that in Agile ways of working, we take this framework away. Almost it feels like take a shortcut in a way. We get to this new way of doing things where we're delivering things much more rapidly. And therefore the concern often of some leaders is, so how do I know what I'm going to get out of the end of that will still be of that good quality? Yeah.
So in your experience, where does quality first appear?
Well, quality always starts with the customer. That's what we always say. And, one way of thinking about quality is that it's our ability to meet the customer's requirements reliably and repeatably. And so where does that conversation begin then? Well, it begins with the customer. We're very passionate at PMI about, really getting to grips with the voice of the customer, understanding really what's important to them. And in Agile, there's three tools that have really jumped out to me, certainly as I've learned about the methodology in more detail, that do a really good job of this. The first one is the empathy map canvas. So there's this tool that you can find this anywhere. It's a widely known tool, but it invites us to consider these 6 questions that really get to the heart of the customer's requirement. So first gets us to really think about who we are empathizing with. Then we break it down into these interesting categories of what do they need to do, what do they see, what do they say, and what do they do. So what do they need to do? Said in real customer language, what is it that they need to do? What are they trying to achieve? And then given their current situation, what do they see right now? What do they see that's missing? What do they see that's working? And what do they say? If we go talk to these people, what's the kind of feedback that instantly we get? And then what do they do today? So before we've built our product and solution, what's their current situation in terms of the actions that they have to go through? And then there's this final question of what do they hear? And that's a really interesting one. Because it might be things like, well, what do they hear others say about our processes? What do they hear others say about our organization? What theories might they have? So it's really good as this tool. It really gets you to empathize with the customer from all of these unique dimensions and can be a great brainstorming tool.
Do you know what? It sounds a bit to me like, imagine going to Gemba, there might be good questions that you might ask, mightn't they? Very similar. Yeah. So that sets up that quality input to the needs of the customer and the voice of the customer.
Yes. And then from there, we need to translate that into some more specific requirements, exactly as we would in any Greenbelt project when we'd want to define things and we'd want to have those measurable customer requirements. Well, in Agile, there are tools of going from this general sense of I know what my customers want to, right, and now I'm ready to create something that I think will be of great quality. And the two of the tools that can be used to get there in Agile are user stories and personas. And personas are a really great tool. What we're doing with those is once we've said what the customers want in that last tool, we're visualizing who the customers are. So what you almost do with a persona is you create something that looks like almost like a CV with a picture of a fictional person, but it's this stand-in for this is the kind of person I'm developing this tool for. All right. So say you're developing you wanted to create some sort of wine. I'm going to choose something that's not technology at all, but to show how this works, right? You'd create this one-page summary with a picture of a person, a hypothetical person. You'd find some, generic model stand-in, and you'd say, this is the kind of person we're, designing for. You give them a fictional name, and you really describe their personality, their likes, their dislikes. And that can become the North Star for the developers of that wine to really think, this is who I'm making that for. What choice would they want me to make? And again, that keeps them, the development of this product, this solution, on track to meet customer expectations.
I love that. I love that idea of being able to really clearly visualize, but also articulate the qualities of your customer.
Absolutely. And then the final neat trick is to take that persona-led thinking and to then actually express our requirements from the perspective of the customer or the user. And this is where, again, Agile gets a reputation for having these very technology-led terms. But, as a user, or as a user of wine, which I can relate to, I could then tell a story. As a user of this wine, I don't want it to spill. I know that's a silly and obvious user story, but in structuring our requirements this way and in giving the requirements to our development team in a format like this, as a user, I need to do this so that I can, and that's important, having the goal of the user, right? And then laying out a set of precise, we call them acceptance criteria. So, what's the definition of good? What would good look like for this customer? Well, all of those little niggly things that we want to make sure we get right. Again, a lot of crossover here with traditional voice of the customer and operational definitions. But what that means is that by design, as we're developing the product, we're looking at it from the customer's perspective. Yeah. And that therefore sets us up for high quality.
And then taking that forward into actually delivering whatever the product service is going to be, where does quality come up within that?
That's a very good question. And there, certainly in the Scrum framework of Agile, this is where the product owner really starts to shine. So the product owner, just as a quick summary, is there in the Agile methodology to really represent the customer. They are the ones who select on behalf of customers the things that we want to deliver. And through the life of what's called a sprint in Agile, which is this time-bound frame where we deliver a set of these customer requirements, we build some stuff to test with the customer. There's these 3 events where the product owner really gets to steer the team towards quality. And the first one's actually at the beginning of the sprint. It's in the sprint planning. And in the sprint planning, what's really important is that the product owner doesn't just pick the things that we want to deliver, but what they do is they orient and potentially reorient the team of developers, those building the product. They orient them toward what's called the product goal. So this single unifying theme that tells the story of why are we doing this sprint for the customer. And therefore it doesn't become a tick box exercise of we've got these, these little things we want to build and test. There's this problem we're trying to help the customer solve.
Yes.
And we understand what that problem is. And that can guide every decision, every design choice, everything we do for the duration of the sprint. And therefore, the quality should be higher.
If I was, looking to roll out an Agile approach to my improvements, this is giving me a lot of confidence that quality is going to be not only built in at the start and the understanding of requirements, but also in the delivery of those and the checking back in. And I like your idea of the sort of the orienting and reorienting people towards the goal of the project. Yes.
And then the next important point is once the work is done. And once the work is done, we've done everything we can at this point in the Agile methodology to assure the quality, not to control it, but to assure that it should be there because we've really thought about the customer. But then at the end of a sprint, we would have 2 more major events. The first would be a sprint review. And in the sprint review, we're demoing what we've built. So we have the product owner in the room, again, representing the customer, and we would be showing them these solutions, testing them with the customer there or with the product owner there on behalf of the customer. It is actually encouraged, if you can, to have customers there too.
Yes.
That's the perfect answer. And we're making final tweaks to the product to make sure that everything is exactly to customer expectations, so that when we then release, when we go live with what we created in this sprint, we can deliver, or we can be sure that we are delivering these high quality solutions that the users are going to like and they're going to respond well to.
Great. And then you said there's a final one?
One final one, a short one, which is the sprint retrospective. Now, the retrospective and the review, I've had them confused in my head before, but just to keep them clear, where that review's about demoing the product, tweaking it, getting it ready, we then have a separate session where we just capture lessons learned as a team. And there's two dimensions to this. The first is lessons learned about the product itself, and that can include, quality concerns and things that we want to get better next time. And then the second is reviewing and having a retrospective on how the team worked together as a unit and where there's opportunity to improve how we work, improve how we collaborate. And so again, these two things conspiring to make the next sprint even more likely to produce high quality.
Yes. And that constant drive through quality and improvement to continuously learn and feed back so that we are a continuously growing organization in what we do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It was brilliant. You've explained that really, really well to me, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website, or, of course, your favorite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organization. We'd really love to hear from you.